Welcome to the Pope's Point of View with your host, Elijah Burke.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for joining your boy yet again for another edition of Pope's Point of View. And of course, I am your host of hosts, your God of light, your paragon of virtue, your former NWA World's Television Champion, the Pope, Elijah Burke. And you are listening to the podcast or watching right now that is known as 45 Minutes of Fire. There's no polo, so I got to do it for him. And then some. And we're going to get to that some in just a moment or two. But before your boy do, I have to do my due diligence because you talk about your boy being a former NWA World Television Champion. Well, with me right now is a former NXT North American Champion, WWE Superstar. Guys, my distinct privilege and honor right here, right now, to bring in the one and the only formerly Velveteen Dream, but Patrick Clark Jr. Welcome to Post Point of View Sit Down Interview, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate you making some time to platform me today. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I call you Clark, but do you prefer? Is there any preferred method of recognition that you choose to go by? Patrick, Clark Jr.
No, no, I figure as long as you say it with some respect, you can call me just about anything, and I'm used to it at this point. So yeah,
That's
just
a
be
10.
respectful.
Well, you know what? Before we get going, I just want to say this is our sit down interview series, something that is airing on YouTube, on Pope TV for you, for the listeners right now on Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen to us at. If you want to see your boy Pope and Patrick Clark in person, then you can certainly go over and click on that YouTube link. But with that being said, guys, I am going to go ahead and get into this. And before I do, Patrick, I want to ask you if you had not pursued wrestling, because we're going to talk
Mhm.
wrestling, of course, but if you had not pursued wrestling, where do you think your life would have taken you? Now, I know that you're a former serviceman, and I know you've done your stuff to cement your roots as a troop, if you will, of sorts on the ground. You're very versed as when it comes to being the athletic performer that you are. But what would Patrick Clark have been doing?
Well, I appreciate the question because I don't get asked it a lot. Asked that question a lot. And I just want to clarify, I never served in the military. I went to a military academy instead of a high school. I did 4 years of Army JRTC, which is a Junior Reserves Officers Training Corps. And I also did some Marine Corps JRTC as well as Air Force JRTC. With all that being said, I think the answer to that question, I'm almost sure that if I was not a professional wrestler, if I was not performing in the squared circle, if you will, I would have definitely enlisted in the Marine Corps if they would have had me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? First off, kudos to you for that because we know there's a lot of fakers out there, and there's a lot of people that would have just let that went by and slid under the rug. So I think it's very cool that you own up to that, and make that known, so you don't want nobody uh, viewing you under a false pretense of sorts, if you will. So now we're going to go ahead and get into your wrestling career. Let's start at the beginning. What drew you in to professional wrestling, Clark?
Well, my earliest memory has got to be The Undertaker popping up in a SmackDown ring somewhere in the early 2000s. And I think that's pretty much what captivated me off the bat was I always liked magic growing up. And to me, The Undertaker was akin to the Dark Magician, which is a character from the Yu-Gi-Oh series, the original Yu-Gi-Oh. And I mean, I love Dark Magician. I love Yu-Gi-Oh. I come across cable TV because, growing up, we didn't have cable TV. Excuse me. We had what is it? Regular network TV. at UPN. Let's just say that UPN Channel 20, watching Taz and Michael Cole open up a SmackDown and seeing Undertaker and then the workmanship of a Kurt Angle that really sucked me into the wrestling world. Yeah.
So, with you saying that, that kind of leads to my next question. Then, were those guys some of your biggest inspirations in the ring?
No, no. Kurt
Who were
Angle
you?
for sure.
Okay.
Undertaker attracted me to the professional wrestling business, but my in-ring style is an amalgamation of Kurt Angle, Macho Man Randy Savage, 90s Shawn Michaels, a little bit of Ric Flair, um, and let's see, and Rick Rude, especially when I'm working heel, a lot of Rick Rude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and I could see that. And that's something that I never even thought about, but I can see Rick Rude now when you mention that. Now, talking about your in ring, those who inspired you, who did so outside of the ring? Did you have any outside inspiration, in life period pertaining that maybe you brought into wrestling? Work ethic, character, which we'll get to later, but was there anybody outside the ring that influenced you, um, that inspired you to say, "Man, I can do this"?
Um, funny thing is, I never pictured myself as a professional wrestler. When the SmackDown versus Raw video game came out, the original, the '05 version of the video game, they they had Jimmy Snuka and Roddy Piper, and I was familiar with those wrestlers. I was introduced to 80s wrestling before I really got into the current product when I started watching 0203. So the legends attracted me to it. One legend in particular that I felt like I could relate to was the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. I was a very small kid growing up, and I never really envisioned myself being able to keep up or even defend myself against the physicality that, these hawking, no pun intended, wrestlers bring to the table. I always thought I'd be a manager, man. Even when I play the video games, I never created a wrestler. I always envisioned myself in some sort of auxiliary role, if
Mm,
you will.
mm,
So, but that is not to say I was not influenced. People may not like this, but as a young boy, Vince McMahon, something about the way Vince McMahon carried himself, um, really pulled me in. And as I've gotten older and as I've gained a little experience and I've been able to travel the world wrestling, um, I've had influences like Shawn Michaels. He was my coach for a bit. Um, Matt Bloom, Paul Levesque, Triple H. Um, those are my main three influences as I begin to come into my own as a performer.
okay, well, you're kind of there, so I'll kind of piggyback off of that. But I just want to talk about before you actually got there. Uh, how and what was it like for you to transition? You talk about your fandom. What was it like for you to transition from a fan to going to compete on Tough Enough? How did that process even
Tough.
happen for you?
I don't really think between. Okay, so I mean everything is like a blur. Everything happens so quick, man. I started watching wrestling when I was 8.
Hmm.
Um, and then I was signed with NXT at the age of 19, 18 or 19. So I really didn't have much time coming out of adolescence into adulthood and tough enough to even break that fandom that you said. Between me being a fan and for my adolescence and me getting hired or me even performing on Tough Enough as a contestant when I was 18. It's a 10-year gap, but the decade wasn't that long. And I learned on Tough Enough quickly that this is a business and that you're competing for a contract. And her feeling be damned. No one cares about the desires that put you in this place to fight for this contract, to be competing on Tough Enough with all these incredible talent. You think about Amanda, 'cause careers and resumes before me to just come, straight out of high school, straight out of wrestling school. I didn't have much time at all.
Okay, so with that being said, you know transitioning, if you will. Shout out to Gabby Tough. Transitioning from adolescence to adulthood as you chase your dream. How difficult and what was the most, I should say, difficult sacrifice that you had to give up to go chase that dream?
Mm.
Leaving family, leaving home. What was the most challenging part of that for you? Did you have
I,
to lose
I,
friends? Did you have to cut folk off? Like, did you lose relationships?
I'm glad you said that. I would probably say that the loss of relationships. I can't even say I lost them because I still have those relationships today. I don't think. I think I'm very fortunate
Mhm.
because I don't think I've had to make any sacrifices. I'm not saying anything was handed to me either. I definitely had to invest in myself and put in a level of sweat equity, if you will, to get to where I ended up going. But I don't think I made any sacrifices. Again, I came straight from home, went to Tough Enough. 3 months after Tough Enough, I was moving to Florida with a $2,500 bonus in my pocket and moving into an apartment by myself. I had a vehicle that I bought with me, a Mustang, um, drop top 2 door, called a Mustang Sally. Yeah, children. I didn't have a girlfriend that I was leaving back home. I was ready at 18 to get from underneath of my parents' roof and to have space of my own. So I don't. God is great. I don't think He asked much of me or required much sacrifice of me at the time. You know.
All right, well, that is great. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to come back and we're going to continue talking the wrestling career of Patrick Clark. Hello, everyone. It's the Pope Elijah Burke, founder and president of the Love Alive charity. I wanted to take this brief moment to share with you my charity's continued humanitarian efforts to positively impact the impoverished communities in and around the greater Jacksonville area. This cannot be possible without your support. If you'd be so kind, please take a moment to visit our website, love-alive.org, to learn more about the charity and its mission. Also, feel free to donate to our 501c3 organization that operates off of the donation of the public, which is you. Whether that be by website or via Cash App, $1 help makes a difference in the lives of others as we continue to positively influence many people by being the change that we wish to see in the world. All right, Clark, your boy is back. Now listen, we talked about your Tough
Uh-huh.
Enough. We talked about the early parts of your career, and how it all started. So tell me and tell the listening audience, how did Tough Enough help shape you? Again, we're talking about a young man going in. And before you even say that, I want to talk about that young man, okay? First off, when Patrick Clark appeared on Tough Enough, and Pope Daddy, Pope represent all, but Pope is also big on representation. Okay, and so I'm not gonna say not just naturally, oh, there's a black quarterback. No. You were special. It was something about you that made someone like me, who was already in the game, want to pull for you. And then I had the biggest surprise when I was down in Florida at a wrestling event, and all of a sudden, here comes Patrick Clark Jr. walking in while I'm, holding a seminar. Like, what the hell's going on? So that's what I remember. That was my first time meeting you. Is that correct? That was our first meeting.
Yes. I didn't know. You said that was a seminar. I had no clue.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it was what it was. I mean, we were doing some filming with big green screen in the background. We had some training going on, and Ted and Long was there, and all of a sudden, in comes
Uh-huh.
Patrick Clark. So that was pretty cool to see you there. But you had already been tough enough. I think you had already uh, achieved or surpassed that goal. How did tough enough shape you for what would be, become you later?
Um, hmm. We'll say tough enough made me grow up very quickly. Like I said, I was able to be on the show with former models, people that were already pretty involved in show business. And I'm just a young kid, with his hopes and his dreams. That's all I've got on my resume. And I learned very quickly that like these are shark infested waters. Like these people are looking for their next
Hmm.
meal ticket.
Hmm.
These are not wrestling fans that I was on the show with. These are not people that were as impassioned about the wrestling business like I am.
So Clark, again, we talked about me meeting you and you and I having our first interaction with one another. But tell me how and if your experience on Tough Enough, how did that shape you to, and what was it like? It was a lot of show business, right? How many cuts and edits? How much was staged and sought up, and the list goes on because it's still wrestling and it's still a show that they're producing. So, how did all of the show business part prepare you for what was to come?
Well, I learned quickly that in show business, it's all about hurry up and wait. It's a lot of getting ready, getting ready, getting ready. A quick shot, whatever you're going to do is shorter than the time it's spent getting ready to actually do it.
Yeah.
I learned patience. I learned that, I learned how to be competitive. I thought I was competitive, but to be with professionals from different fields and to see how they prepare, to see how they compete, and to see what they're willing to sacrifice in order to win. I mean, it was a wake up call for a guy like me. I've always been a big fish in a small pond. In school, I wrestled for a little bit in the military academy I was telling you about. I wrestled for 2 years. Our team was probably 4 to 6 people deep at any given time, which is not a lot for an
Of
amateur
course not.
wrestling squad. So I've always had room to grow, and I was finally in a room that would allow me to do just that. It really turned up my intensity too. If I recall, Dusty Rhodes passed on the second day of a 3 day tough enough tryout. And I remember on that second day, we were supposed to go down and do promos. Promos, really, we got in bikinis. Girls were in bikinis. Guys were in swim trunks. They wanted to see your physique. And then they wanted to hear from you. I think maybe you got like a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And they wanted you to explain, convince them why you belonged on the show.
Hmm.
Now, I've received a phone call from my coach from Maryland Championship Wrestling, MCW Pro Wrestling now, uh, Pat Brink. He used to wrestle in FCW as Calvin Reigns.
Okay.
And he was connected with Lita. Lita happened to be a coach on that season of Tough Enough in 2015. And she said, I don't know, you got to tell your boy Patrick to toughen up. He needs to show him some fire, was what she said exactly. Because the producers of the USA Network and the WWE executives did not want any independent wrestling talent a part of the 2015 season of Tough Enough. They thought that it would cheapen the show, which, if you know anything about the Indies, which I know you do,
Mhm.
it would have been a great show if everybody, you get like 10 or 15 hungry indie talent. You really would see some drama, but they didn't feel like I was dramatic enough. So, circle back to Dusty passing that same day. When we got the word, Matt Bloom came up to you see the lobby when you watch NXT where the fridge is. That's where everybody in Tough Enough was, 40 people, and he announces, Dusty Rhodes passed everybody, and the room stops, gets quiet for about 3 seconds, and then people go back to talking. They just go back to congregating like nothing happened. And I remember sitting there, this young aspiring professional wrestler, but the mark inside of me got pissed and I got hot. And I
Mhm.
was just like, how dare these people? You don't even have respect for Dusty Rhodes.
Right, right.
King of promos, ironically, on the day that we have to cut promos. And it really grinded my gears. I had another way of expressing that, but I won't because,
Well,
I know you don't like cussing.
yeah, I will appreciate that here on Post Point of View. you, as you mentioned, you were a fan. You grew up, watching Taker and those who you mentioned prior. Um, some of these people, you know, they were not fans. It was evident. They just wanted the glam. They wanted to be on TV. And, they just wanted to be a part of a production, if you will. I don't remember all the people that was with you, and you don't have to answer this, but did you find? Because listen, I was in the police academy. I had to do the, you know, teaming with people that aren't necessarily someone I want to team with or do stuff with. Some folk were just agonizingly, just too much to be in the room with, but you had to deal with it. Is that something that you encountered during your tough enough tenure, where it's like, if it wasn't for the fact that I want to excel and proceed further in this journey, I would probably like. Was there contention?
Uh, Most certainly, especially because we were competing. Now, as I get older, I turn 30 this month, October 27th. Again, I started that tough enough journey when I was 19. So that's about 11 years ago, right? 11 years ago, I was a completely different person. I was a lot more self centered, I was a lot more me driven. And I needed that. I needed that in Tough Enough. Again, Tough Enough was a competition to see who would win a $250,000 contract for 1 year. You had one male winner and you had one female winner. So there was a lot of tension there. There was a lot of self sabotage, not on my part, at least not at that time. There's a lot of self sabotage amongst the competitors because they didn't realize that they needed to find a love for pro wrestling. I found mine, what, 11 years prior when I was 8 years old. To be
Right.
19, I was filled with love. I was filled with joy to even have that opportunity to be on Tough Enough. These guys had to find their joy, which was an easy spot for me to, again, I'm very me focused to take advantage of. Now I realize that in order to be successful in professional wrestling, in life, you have to rely on others. You have to find a we focus. You
Hmm.
have to find motivation in the we, in the team.
Yeah.
I mean, no different than all you done for me. I mean, I would have never had the opportunities with FEW, with All Caribbean Wrestling, with Love Alive. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have any of those opportunities if it wasn't for someone like you thinking about me when I was just thinking about myself, you know? And I had to learn from, you, my cousin, that's allowing me to work with him and learn from him. I needed more positive figures in my life, more positive role models, and I didn't have that on Tough Enough. So it was very easy for me to find.
Trouble.
Oh, that too, but to find the ego required to compete with those guys on Tough Enough, those, you know, tested professionals.
Let me, before I move on, let me say this. First off, thank you for those
Thank
words.
you.
Um, Clark, listen, when I watched Patrick Clark on that darn show. And who were the winners, by the way?
Josh Bradle, he was the male winner, and God bless her soul, Sarah, yeah, Sarah Lee, she was the female winner.
And and yet, no disrespect to them, don't remember. You're the one that everybody knows, remembers it, but we'll get to that. That's just a testament to your hard work. Um, but I I look back over all of what you just said, and you having to find that ego. And man, let me tell you something. You were in. You said selfish, this, that, and the other. You wore a great mask if that were, if that was the case, because you did not come across. You were well mannered. Not to say you aren't now, but you were seemed shy. You were way laid back, and maybe that's just the image, and not just image, but maybe that's who you actually were around people who you didn't know. I don't know, but you never came across like an egomaniac or a problem, this, that, and the other. But you finally made your way to WWE, and you made your way to the Performance Center. You signed with the WWE. What was that like? How did it feel for you? Obviously, I'm sure rewarding. I know what it was like when I received my contract at my front door. I was home. I was burying my brother in May of '05. I returned back to my apartment after being gone for 2 weeks, and there's a FedEx envelope at my door on my mat. God knows how long it's been there, but it's just sitting there. And I remember I picked it up, and when I turned it over, it said WWE. I took my bags, I went inside, I shut the door, and I dropped my suitcase and everything, and I ripped that thing open, and sure enough, it was my WWE contract. And you know, I gave all praise and glory to my Creator, to the Lord above. And what was it like for you, though? What was your experience? When were you told? Who told you that you were signed?
Well, all things considered, I knew I was going to have another opportunity after I got eliminated in week 5 of Tough Enough. Triple H walked up to me and he told me that you don't have to win a reality TV show to be a WWE superstar. And
Wow.
that gave me a considerable amount of hope going into my second tryout, which I was fortunate enough to have a second tryout. And maybe 2 months after that, I got the call from Canyon Seaman letting me know that they were going to bring me in October of 2015 and get me started. I was elated. I was happy. You saw me smile as you described, you know, your experience. I smiled so hard because it was very similar to mine. Not the going into the experience, but the experience itself. To see that FedEx envelope, to see the little WWE logo in the corner, and to see your name and address, to know
Yeah.
that there's no mistake. Uh,
Yes.
God intended for you to have that blessing. It is almost indescribable. I don't really think I've sat down long enough with myself to find the words to even articulate that. So, you know, I
You're thinking about
yeah,
it.
I have to honestly think about it, put more thought into it, and figure out how to articulate that because I just don't have the words right now to to really describe the joy, the pure joy in my. I guess if I had to pick one word, joy, just pure joy in my heart to know that my dream had come true. No
Okay.
puns intended.